Welcome everyone to another episode, another chapter, another edition of the Open Book, Open Mind Challenge. Tonight we have a special guest, special friend, an actual author, motivational speaker, slash homie from the block, slash educator, hope dealer, she calls herself. And she's the author of this brand new book that my wife and I have just been reading called The Wounded Liberation. Well, not The Wounded, but Wounded in itself. And that's deep. We'll talk about that. Everyone out there, I want you to welcome Miss Crystal Giovanna Ferguson. Or how I'd like to say, Crystal Little Bit Ferguson.
Yes, yes. Hey, hello.
Hello. All right, so just to let you know, Crystal, every time my wife and I talk or read or see anything about you, I always call, hey, Little Bit. I'm
Yeah,
always saying that. That's literally how I remember everything
yeah,
about you is Little Bit. You were like,
yeah.
because remember you growing up. I remember coming around and seeing you and her and how you used to interact with her as a little sister kind of type of situation, type of
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So I always had a respect and a pride seeing you and seeing all your accomplishments and the things you've been
Thank
doing
you.
since then from a long time. So now whenever I talk about you, I literally say Little Bit, and that used to be your
It used to
name
be my
on
Facebook name.
that used
Yeah.
to be your Facebook name.
Yes.
And I'm glad to have you on here tonight, and I'm glad you accepted to take this open book, open mind challenge
I
tonight.
love it. I love it. I love the title. I love what it stands for. It's amazing.
Well, now you're part of our challengers tonight, and you're gonna be archived in history as a champion if you fulfill and succeed tonight on our
Okay.
program,
Okay.
which I'm sure you will. All right. So first off, I wanted to have you on this program because you recently wrote a book, like we said, called Wounded Liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I'm gonna pull out the book itself so I can thumb through
We can be
and show you some.
friends.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a growth advisory. Wait,
Advisory.
a growth advisory right here, and it's
Yeah.
motivational content. So if you're not ready to be motivated or grow or ready to grow, I wouldn't read
Don't
this
open
book if
it.
I were you. I would say, no, don't do it. But if you're really about that life and you feel like you need to be liberated from things and some trauma and want to really face your fears and your anxiety and all those things that come with growth, I would definitely recommend this book because I'm actually literally seriously still reading this book right now. And as I told Crystal, I'm talking a lot, but I wanted to read this book and take time on it so that I wouldn't just rush it and say, yeah, I read it and I did that. I really wanted to
Mhm.
take time and digest because you took very much time, it looks like, to really break down in detail the type of things you put in here, the jewels that
Yeah.
you found.
Yeah.
So, welcome, first off.
Thank you.
And what brought you to this point? How did you come about writing this amazing book?
It was a lot of internalizing that I was doing through just different relationships and not feeling free to express myself. And
Hmm.
so I literally would, take my phone and add notes to the note section and just store it there. And after a while, it just became a huge compilation. Once I went through everything that I had during a specific time period, I had over 5,000 notes in my phone. And so, and in addition to screenshots with things that resonated with me. And so I said, I need to do something with this and make it where it's not just a release for me, for
Right.
people as well.
Well, it's definitely a release. I can tell because when I was looking through it, the first thing I noticed, there's a lot of, I'm going to say this a lot. The first thing I noticed, I'm going to say dot, dot, dot. But one of the first things I noticed is the way you formatted this book. You wrote it in a sense like it was slash album slash musical poetry
Mm-hmm.
slash therapy, counseling sessions, and the
Mm-hmm.
notes and the things that you put in there is really well put together. And it's very aesthetic, like poetic and artistic in a way
Yeah.
that I saw it.
Yes.
Is that how you phrased it with your notes, or is that what your intention was when you put it together?
When I decided to put it together, that was like the vision that I saw for it. And so I'm addicted to hip hop. So I wanted it to look like a hip hop album. And I
Yeah.
realized like albums aren't long. When
No,
you really print out an album, it's maybe 10 pieces of paper, but the impact that it has that's what's long. That's what has the longevity on our lives and allows us to grow. So I wanted it to have that visual album kind of feel.
you
And so
nailed it.
that's why I wanted the growth advisory instead of the parental advisory, and just
Yeah.
all those little plays, and then incorporating the chapters as features.
I did one of those one time. I actually, I don't know if you know this, but in my old days, I used to rap a little bit,
Oh
and
yeah?
yeah, I had a few bars, and I still keep them keep them in the case. But
In the arsenal?
yeah, in case somebody want to try me. But
Yes.
but I definitely recognize that off of that. When I saw it, I saw the way you phrase your verses. I saw the way that you created a stanza, and
Mhm.
also asked for us to repeat it as well. You know what I mean? Internalize it as well. And that's like a piece of music that you experience when you listen to it. Unless you know the words, sometimes you're kind of just sitting there fumbling. But when you start to say the words that the artist put out there, and you start to
Yep.
repeat it, it becomes something that you believe, and it's also something that you can assimilate.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
saw that you did that in this book, which you even actually put at the end of maybe every chapter a little promise or a little bit of a
Yes.
contract.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing. I'm
Yes.
saying a lot because it really is in there, folks. If you ever want to get like me, you got to read this book and see what
Yes.
you
And I
get.
made it hard copy for a reason. You know, I
Mm,
want you to feel it. I want you to be able to like write in the spaces. There's a lot of space in a book. Some pages, as you've seen, only has one line on it. That
yeah.
gives you room to, fill it up with whatever you're feeling or how it impresses you in your particular stage. Like, you can be free to write along with the book. So
Interactive, very interactive. And I'll say for those who haven't seen it yet, this is like what I'm talking about. Like this is how she has some of her chapters, some of her quotes, and this one I just happened to open up to is a good friend of ours, Aisha
I was
Rose.
about to say, did you do that on purpose?
I didn't do that on purpose.
So funny.
I didn't do shouts out to Lucky, Aisha,
Yes, yes.
Auntie. My kids call her Auntie Isha. So basically, I'll read it since we're over here, and I'll give her some love because you
Yeah.
did as well in this book. So there are a lot of heavy people walking around. Some people are waiting for others to open the door for them when they can barely open the door for themselves. And you basically quoted real people that you knew and had experiences in relationship with.
Yes.
But what so that was dope, and that's just one part of like one of the books that the way she did it. But the other thing I noticed in there was like you had a lot of things that you said on your own, like some real quotables. You know what I mean? Where did you acquire so much of these kind of phrases and idioms and jewels? Like you really just you broke it down and compiled a lot of that for us. How did you acquire all of this knowledge? I know you have some background in that, I'm sure.
I have background in behavioral science, and so that translated into me being a high school also as a driver. I do Uber, Lyft, and I have my own chauffeur company. But I realized like I just pick up notes from everything that I hear. It says that my connection is unstable. Can you still see me?
I still see you. You were
Okay.
saying you get a lot of information from Uber and from your behavioral background.
Yes. So
Can you say
I
it again? Because I might not say it as good as you would.
Okay, so I was saying that with everything that I've done, I've been able to get messages from different things. I'll be able to make analogies based off things that I see and how I could relate it to life. And that also became a part of the process for me uh, not to put myself out there too much. I used to get in trouble for putting too much information on Facebook because it was people's feelings. So I started generalizing the things that I wanted to say. And so that became a thing. So if I'm driving and I like something comes to me at the light, I'm just jotting it down. And it's just one of those epiphanies that happens to me very often. And so I
Yeah.
just write and I keep writing.
And so I like that you said that, and you brought that to light in this book. Your upbringing in a sense of maybe a Caribbean culture that we haven't have in common is that you definitely don't want to shame or put out your dirty laundry in
Mm-hmm.
public, and that brings shame to either your community or your family in itself. And that's a very big reason, I think, why our culture and our communities are so suppressed in a sense of
Yes.
emotionally
Yes.
suppressed and not able to express themselves as they would, generally, if they've been welcomed to do so and to share so.
Mm-hmm.
So you were very honest in this book, very open, and so you went against and beyond. You went through and broke through that. How did you get to that point?
Um, it was I went back and forth about it for the past 2 years, honestly. Just how much I was going to release, how I was going to do it. I was still very calculated with it. Because subconsciously you just have these things in mind, like what are people going to say? And
Yeah,
a book is not something that you could delete from someone's hands. Once you
yeah,
have this thing in your hand, that's it,
yeah,
so my biggest thing was my mom, like what is my mom going to say, and am I going to give it to her to read and to okay it? And then I
yeah.
just decided, no,
Good,
this is my book and
good.
it's my experience. It's how I put everything together. And I made sure to be respectful. But I just had to do it my way. And so, yeah.
No, I get it. I can see that, and I'm glad you were so honest because I'm sure it's going to bring a lot of healing and growth to a lot of people, which is your intention.
Yes.
Um, but I was very, very, very surprised to see how selfless you were and how open you were, and so willing to be so exposed in a
Mhm.
good way, in a great way, in a great way. Yeah.
It's such a freeing feeling. It
It
really
has to
is.
be, right?
It
To
has,
write and put it out there, it's got to be some kind of therapy for yourself too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for doing that. I have a lot of notes on the book. I'm not gonna keep everyone. I do want to touch base with you because you wrote this, and this is the
Hmm.
best place to get this from. You mentioned about like generational trauma, behavior and cycles, and I was gonna ask what allowed you to break those, or at least learn to get tools to navigate through them. How did you get to that point?
Someone told me one time, if you want the same results as someone, do what they do. And so I was looking at the results that I saw that I didn't want. So it's like you gotta do the opposite and find ways to do that, break that. What you gonna say?
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people like to do the opposite. And that's what I have a problem with, where people say, you know what? Look for the people that did the great things and follow them and do those things. And that's true. But I
Mm-hmm.
also have to say, you have to focus on the negative people that affected you so that you know what not to do as well.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
we don't often say that out loud, or I've never been given that advice. It's always to say, look for the proper example to emulate. And I'm like, no, I know a lot of people who are great who made bad mistakes. And I also know what I don't want, because there's two types of people in relationships. I think the people who, well, coming from relationships, you might be the person who kind of suffers and repeats
Mm-hmm.
and is submissive, or you might be the person that says, no, I'm not doing that because I know what's going to happen if I don't stand up or break out.
Exactly.
And maybe there's other types too. But I think we all are those people in different times. We're both people.
We are. We are. And then there's something that happens too. I hear it with my peers a lot. I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be like my dad. But subconsciously, they
Yeah,
start becoming them, because a lot of the patterns are embedded in them. And it's like
yeah.
you really have to be intentional about like going the other
You have
direction.
to. You can't just say you don't want to, but you have to make moves not to be.
Exact.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, Bars. Come on, Bars. It's true.
Right?
You have to make the moves not to be.
You can't just not want to do it. You got to figure out how to get away from doing those things. And like I said, those don't necessarily have to be bad people, but they could be great people who did bad things or things that aren't for us to follow because we learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely.
So I saw that in your book, which is powerful. And I also wanted one more question about that, if I may. You said about how you had them in notes and you kept them. Oh, the eucalyptus shower, and you said
Ooh,
facing
child.
trauma.
Yes.
That's dope.
It wasn't
That's
dope at first.
yeah, yeah, right, right,
It
right,
wasn't
right,
dope at first. It took a long time. Took 8 years.
right.
Took 8 years. Took 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, get the book. We'll leave it
Yeah.
there.
I mean, it's on my Instagram too. Like,
Okay,
just
okay.
scroll up to last year. I think I made like the first release of it. But yeah.
Quickly,
3 years.
she said there's a ritual, if I might call it that, you would embrace or surround yourself with things that would trigger emotions, and sometimes that happens with us through smell and scent and aroma and things like that. But you took that on as something that you were uncomfortable with at first,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you used that to face and actually induce yourself into this traumatic experience
Mhm.
to break out of it or overcome it. Is that
Yes.
how that works?
Yes. Yes.
And I was just like, I've never heard of someone running into a fire on purpose
Woo.
outside of like, a first responder, and you did that for yourself. Like, you rescued yourself in that way.
I had to, because I realized how damaging and stifling,
Mm-hmm.
like it was. I think I talked about the whiff of that smell sometimes would just send me crying,
Yeah.
and it was just like, do you want to do this for the rest of your life? Because it was uncontrollable. Uncontrollable. One time I was working at the school, and somebody down the hall put on a lotion that had the scent, and I was like, and I started to get real angry and sad. I started crying. I'm like, who has that? Who has that? And they're like, what happened? Like, it smells good, and I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to smell it. And it was such a problem. And I realized, like, yo, you gotta do something about this, because the rest, it's a great herb. It's a great thing to use as a healing tool. So it's an oxymoron almost for me, because it was like the damaging part and the healing tool. But sometimes they say the cause is the cure also. So
Crystal, I don't know how you found so much wisdom beyond your years, and I'm sitting here like I'm reading this thing, and I'm like, wow, like you're dropping jewels, I keep saying, but you're really finding not just a way to say this is what I did and I'm cool. You're showing people what you're doing and what works for you,
yeah.
and you're giving people kind of insight on what they can hope to achieve in following some of your steps. So this is kind of like a very open book of poetry. But oh, one more thing I'm gonna say. I said one more thing. I liked how you got the features on the back. So as we talked about the records, every chapter is a every track is a powerful
A
statement
chapter.
featuring something else that is totally uprooting and dismantling the original phrase. But it has to be a duality in the way that we could find lightness in the darkness, we could find love from hate. And so you said that in your book, in the features, I'll say one or two. The
Mhm.
first track you wrote was about love featuring hate, and you wrote in the second track joy featuring grief. Like you featured
Mhm.
them together,
Mhm.
like
Because you can't have one without the other.
and you can't recognize one without having experienced the other.
Okay.
How do you know what makes you happy if you've never been sad?
Okay.
You know what I
Ask that.
mean?
Yes. Yes.
So I seen that, and I really like, I'm really, really feeling the way you put this together. It's not like a typical self-help book. I think
Yeah.
it's a real personal touch, and I see all the little details you put in there, and they're profound. And I really, really hope people get a chance to pick this up for either themselves or someone they know, or I think it's a young adult uh, you know, compilation, I would say, but anyone can read it.
Anyone could pick it up. Anyone can pick it up.
Anyone can read it. So when you guys get a chance, where can we pick this up? I picked mine up. I got, I know where I got mine,
We
but
came straight to the source
we
on
can.
crystaljferguson.com. That's the fastest way for you to receive your book because Amazon has delays. Okay.
Okay. So we'll put it up here on the site, and we'll also, like, I'll put the little the caption on the bottom of it. But Crystal J. Ferguson, and then you said Amazon as well, if anyone does.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Books a Million. It's literally on a lot of retail bookstore sites. So
Considering that it's musical, would you ever consider having any kind of an audio version?
yes, yes. The audio
Okay.
mixtape is in the works right now.
Okay, all right, all right, all right. That's all I wanted to hear. I'm gonna look for that
Yes.
too. Very good to know. Very good to hear. So as I have you on this program, I wanted to know what books are you reading as well? Like you wrote an amazing book. What do you enjoy reading when you're not writing?
When I'm not writing, it depends because I'm driving for the most part. So I'll
Gotcha.
listen to a few audiobooks.
Right.
Right now I'm listening to The Source of Self-Regard by Toni Morrison.
Nice.
And she's just one of my writing heroes because she allowed me to see what it is to write for our people, unapologetically. And then the other book that I am reading is the 48 Laws of Power. This book is like, I wasn't ready for it. And I found the receipt. I had asked one of my homegirls to buy it for me for my birthday. And I found the receipt. It was from 2011.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm now diving into it. And I feel like I wasn't ready in 2011, but now I'm like, yo, this
I
is the time.
I feel you on that. I have some books that I even know that I should. I had an open book session once, and a friend of mine, shout outs to Erin. She read the Diary of Malcolm X, or the autobiography
Autobiography.
of Malcolm X. And I told her that that was one of those books that I've seen and heard and was required to read in school, and it was never something I was like, yeah. But it's one of those books that's an essential book.
Yes, it
For
changed my life.
for our community, and I think it's good for other people to read it as well. But there's some books that just take time, and you need to be ready for it, or at
Yeah.
least you have to be ready to receive whatever comes out of it.
Because the right book will allow you to face yourself and
Yeah.
force yourself to grow. And it's like, you got to be ready.
Power, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That Power book is amazing. And so what did you like about those two books that you just chose? I know you said that it speaks to us in different ways. What do you
Yeah.
like about the Power book?
There's a chapter that I'm reading right now that said use your absence to increase the desire for you to be present. So a lot of times you see people just in your face, or you'll go on your Instagram feed and you see people that's always there, and then you get tired of them. But then the people that give you doses, you want more from them, and you're just so interested. And so it was just talking about become so rare because your value is scarce. Like, and so yeah, that chapter, like I've been on that for this week, and I'm just like taking it all in.
Wow. So how are you doing nowadays with everything going on in the world? What are you doing to keep your head and to keep yourself inspired?
Ooh, it
Anything
took a while.
fun
Fun.
or relieving, or
I've been
what is
having
it?
dance parties.
Recreational
I've been
dance
having
parties.
dance parties in my house, like putting on old school R&B, 112, Jagged Edge,
Yes.
all those things
Eh,
that make your body go.
We've been listening to a lot of Instagram DJs now. Like there's one lady who was just strictly played reggae all night.
Really?
Oh man. And it wasn't like commercial reggae that happens to come to the US 5 years after the track is made, it's touring around Europe.
Yeah.
This is like 90s. This is like old school.
I love that.
This was like she played it like a genuine, you know, fan and person who knew the culture. So she spun really. Her name, I forget her name. I should shout her out. I'll do that when I get her. DJ
Okay.
Woo, DJ Millie. Shouts to
DJ
DJ
Millie.
Millie.
Okay, shout out to you, girl.
DJ Millie was doing her thing. And there's a lot of people out there, and anyway, it's good to keep balances out here, especially with
Yeah.
everything happening when we're all restricted.
Especially if you're tuning into the news, that could be very draining. And social media too can be triggering. There's a lot going on in the world. So just, guard yourself, guard what your intake is, and do everything with moderation because it's crazy.
I hear that. I appreciate that. I have so much I could talk to you about all day for sure. Like I was looking at, you see me going off screen is because I'm looking at my notes and I wrote them in my phone so I wouldn't lose it. I have it literally with my little stylus.
Look at the irony right there.
Exactly.
I put the notes in my phone. You put the notes in your phone.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You and I I like to think that I can see where you came up with a lot of these because I can see it in my head and I can visualize your creative energy in this book and the details and stuff. That's why I really jumped out. Like, this isn't like just some regular kind of thing you could get, and especially knowing that I know you and being able to read this, it really hits different, you know. And my wife loves it. She's the one that when she told me about it, we're both like, no, we gotta get on this. And yeah. So I know it took a lot for you to put that together, and we're very, very appreciative of the work you're doing and the stuff that you're doing online. And I have a studio audience member who wants to say what's up to you.
Oh snap! Hey girl, hey!
Hi. Congratulations on your book. Awesome.
Thank you.
I always know you were always great, Crystal, like always. Really.
Get out the way.
A leader.
Co-host. Come.
Everything. I was like, I have to get this book. I have to support.
Oh my gosh. I
Definitely.
received that.
Definitely. Oh man. I'm
You
so
are
amazed
glowing
at the work.
right now.
Huh?
You're glowing right now.
Oh, it's the lotion.
Yes.
Oh man. So what you been up to? How has it been?
Taking it one day at a time.
For real.
One day at a time, because people are just dropping, and it's like so much weight that comes with that. All of these Zoom funerals that I've been to, it's just a lot.
Oh man, I could imagine in New York too. It's like I feel out of it a little bit, but then every so often I see like a little post and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I know this person. Can't believe they're gone. But it's just like you can't take it all in though. You kind of have to like separate sometimes because that itself can be overwhelming.
Yep.
But you got us in this book. You figured it out. You figured. I was reading and I was like, yes, because like these things, like I can relate to it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I had to learn it and you're learning it and you're going through it. And I'm like, you got it. Like, yes. Even with the whole way you were talking about, the church and, the whole disfellowship, and just because I was telling Dave, I was like, oh my God, like for real.
Because we don't talk about it.
We all talk about it. But it's hard because it's like, for me, you can't change some of the adults, their ways. So you kind of just have to grow and not leave them behind, but just kind of know how to move, navigate, because you can't, you're trying.
And so that's the hardest part. Because when you know better, you're like, can you do better with me? But, all right.
Yeah, and they're like, no, the Bible says. And you're like, yeah, but.
Yeah, you never question why.
No, they do not. They don't question why.
I took notes on that too. It's one of them, but I didn't
Oh,
want to.
sorry. So
No, I want you to talk. I didn't want to give her like a straight up interrogation of her book because I wrote a lot of notes about it.
You can. It's fine. You can.
But
It's
I
a
agree with that. Let me
conversation.
get in there with you. You don't have to move.
Crystal is not shy. She is not shy at all.
You don't know me then, Joe.
No, I know. But like I told you, I could go on for so many different ways about what you wrote, and I thought it was important that you mentioned the side about the culture and the churches, and so how church is one, and then Caribbean culture in the church is another. I think deep-rooted issue where a lot of people don't allow children or young people or people who are different than them trying to make their own way. And I think it becomes this place where we've learned that, if you aren't a parent who respects your child or at least respects certain things about their individuality, then you're only passing on your insecurities because you want them to do as you want them to do, not so much as what you did or what you trained them to do, but your expectations are so high that it's hard enough for the child to get through that, but you didn't do it yourself.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You didn't accomplish that.
And then to even ask that question, like, well, what did you do? You get backhanded, So it's like you just suppress that, like trying to figure out why is there this kind of double-mindedness within the church, within your families. And it's like, I don't know if you experienced this, but your parents, you may see that they have the capability when they're working with other people, and they're like, oh, so you could do this.
Yes.
It's just when it comes to their babies, they have to have a different approach. And that's why I was saying, like, it's almost to have bragging rights to their friends or just to make it seem like everything is good. They got it all under control. I'm the best parent there is. And no.
You're right. And
there's no honesty.
Yeah. And you feel you don't, that whole respect that you have for your parents, and you don't want to step on toes, but it's kind of, you want to have the conversation with them and not seem disrespectful, because there's certain things that you're like, wait a minute, I just heard you have that conversation with that person. So why can't we have those conversations? And it's, how do you approach that? That's the thing, and that's where we're just kind of.
Yeah, how do you advise somebody like that as a youth?
To
be able to speak up when, and I think this book is giving you tips on how to deal with it internally and how to maneuver and how to acknowledge those feelings within yourself. Do you think this is a book that the parents or the generation before would appreciate? I know you said you shared this with your mom after you wrote it. I guess how was her reception to the book? If you don't mind me asking.
I gave her the book Mother's Day.
Shout out to moms over there. I'm not.
She's not the come of the camera.
Okay.
But I don't think she read it yet. She's been telling people to buy it, and I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Like,
without reading it first.
Did you read it? Like, don't just share it.
I guess it's because she's proud, and that's one aspect of it. But I understand that you would, you had it intentionally made for purposes of people who would have read it.
Yeah. And I wish her generation, because my mom and I, we're 41 years apart. So I've been dealing with this gap for a really long time of just trying to get through to her for the simplest things, because we just grew up in two different places at two different times. And I just think there's a level of dishonesty that her generation, I feel like, has. They, even if they were to read it and see it, they wouldn't want to face it. They might acknowledge it inside of themselves, but they'll never dare say it out loud. It's like, I can't be accountable for what you received it to be. I did the best that I could as your parent, and I did what I could do with what I had, and that's just it. Don't question it. You turned out fine, right? So
you turned from what they see on the surface, but internally they have no idea the things that we kept in and just navigated through on our own and figured out with, because there's certain conversations you can't have with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to say you turned good in spite of what I did to you. And shout outs to the moms and the pops out there. I'm not saying you did a terrible job, but in spite of the trauma and the grief that you caused us, we somehow figured out other ways of excelling.
Yeah.
And they also accept that as their own merit.
Mm-hmm.
As
Mm-hmm.
something that they can do. Of all the good things they've done, that's sometimes the things that we talk about could be done better. So I'm hoping to learn not to be that way, and we're trying to be better parents, or at
Please,
least every
please.
generation I think should upgrade the next, and not to say replace, but I mean to do better, in terms of our future generations as well.
That's necessary. And
I
shout
know.
out to y'all. Y'all been married for how long now?
Oh,
I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
13.
13 years of
Wow.
bliss. I don't even remember anymore because I'm in such a lovely.
He trying to save himself, Joan.
I'm in such a romantic blur that the years feel like days and moments from when I met her.
Mm.
One thing I noticed also, which is very important, I'm gonna say this because you spoke to I keep mentioning the Caribbean culture because I know we're both from those. We're all three of us are from those communities, but it was very important to speak to that. How we don't acknowledge and express our emotions, but I think where we can see there's a high rate of mental illness that goes without being addressed or even what do they call it, counseled or mentored in our cultures. I think that happens to be a big problem as there's a high rate of suicide in a lot of the Caribbean communities. I think more so than our counterparts as well. And they say that Black men commit suicide at a higher rate than our counterparts and more so than women and men of any culture, any other community in America. I found that out in a study or program I was at. And they say that the highest peak rate of suicide happens. I want to know if you guys can guess. Can you guys guess what the highest rate or date or hour or term of suicide is committed?
You mean age or around time?
Around time of the day, time of the week. I'll let you know. It was It was Sunday night before Monday. Between Sunday night at like 7 p.m. to like 8 a.m. on a Monday.
Wow.
Because people are not even so much dealing with work, but the anticipation of going back to those things and back to those things that stress them outside of their normal like weekend comfort. They now have to face the music and go back to school, go back to work, go back to whatever it is that brings them that grief and that trauma. And like I said, for the African American male or Caribbean male to be in that category, we have to do something different.
And I think for men in particular, there aren't enough spaces where you guys can be comfortable being like fully present with your emotions, not just, yo, bro, you good? Like that's just one part of the layer, And I think a lot of guys just don't feel comfortable, even though that's their boy, they don't really know them. And then they internalize, and then they have to be the strong ones all day, every day, and then nobody's hearing them. They're going through life completely like voiceless. It's sad. It's really, really sad.
And it's also because, growing up in our culture too, you're a boy, suck it up. So from a young age, you just learn you're not supposed to show your emotions. You're not supposed to cry. You fall down, just shake it off. Yes, at some point you shake it off, but you also have to deal with those emotions. And then, of course, you become a man. And I mean, for females, it's different. We'll go to our girlfriends and we'll cry and we'll talk about it. We'll say it. But for a guy, it shows weakness. And I think that's also something that I don't know how you teach that. You have to, I guess it has to start at a young age
It does.
with your boys.
Well, I'll tell you what somebody wise told me in a book that I recently read. She said, only those who care about you hear when you're quiet. And basically, I took that on as the ones that we always talk about, the check on your strong friends.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes your strong friends aren't bleeding in front of you, and you don't see that they're hurting. And a lot of times, even with not expressing yourself, when you are even the strong or the weak friend, whoever you are, you don't express yourself. A lot of people who don't know you very well will even notice that you're suffering. And sometimes it's the people closest to you that think they know you the best that don't acknowledge your grief.
Yep.
When you wrote that, what were you?
I was just thinking about why I wrote that.
Oh boy.
Because I don't know, you see my Instagram. 2017 I lost a lot of weight. I went down to like 97, I think was the lowest weight I was, and I was working, I was going to church, I was heavily involved, but nobody noticed. Like I was like my neck, like you could see my bones, everything. When I'm looking at the picture and I'm like, nobody knew like what was going on. And it was because I was still operating, working, and doing everything. So they're just like, she's fine, you know. Maybe her clothes is just falling off a little bit, but you know, she's fine. And it's not until I put those side by side pictures, people are like, wow, like how come I didn't notice that? And I'm like, and it's crazy because I used to go to sleep crying, waiting for somebody to just text like, you good? Are you, how you doing? And it's like, you don't always want to come out and say, I'm sad today. I want somebody to notice, like, I'm sad, you know? But it was one of those things where like I had students at the time. So I would cry for maybe 20 minutes in my office, but once the door opens, I gotta be emotionally available for them. So then I'm like constantly suppressing myself, not eating, not lotioning my skin. Like it was a heavy depression. And I'm just like, you, at some point you want people to notice, but if you don't even like, I don't even know if you could show that you're hurting because it was physically there, but nobody noticed. So
I'm really grateful that you're in a better place, or at least you've gotten the tools to identify those things in your life. So that,
how did you come to that? Sorry,
please.
That realization that I need to.
That what?
You know, you said that you were like 2017. You know, you were really severely depressed. Was there like a point where you're like, no, I need to get control of this? Like, was there like an aha moment or something that just made you put you first?
I think going into the new year of 2018, maybe like 2 weeks before, I was like, all right, I have to do things differently. So I think once I had attention just to do things differently, that's when things started to shift a little bit. Like my approach to just waking up and being grateful started to change. And then by January 15th, 2018, it like shifted completely. So I dedicated the first page to my partner who's incarcerated right now. But that was the day that I pulled up on him randomly. And like from just even sharing my past with him, it was just like, yo, we got it from here. And since then, I've been the healthiest. I hear mommy. Mommy, you dressed? You want to see Joan? And her hubby? Are you dressed? You want to see Joan and her hubby? I don't think she got on clear.
You know, one thing I do notice that you said it might have been around the time when you were having that shift in mindset, but you mentioned a video that you saw of yourself saying that you loved yourself, or I love you, and you seeing yourself saying that to yourself. I've never done that before, but I think it's something that we should practice, like saying that to each other or to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely powerful. Like when you mean that and you share and give of yourself to someone else, now to see and be the recipient of that energy, I think it really, I never thought about doing that before.
It's different.
It's different, especially when you don't, when you, I guess when you don't grow up hearing that, I love you, you're beautiful, it's hard for you to even say it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they have the affirmations, and that's something that I'm learning, because I'm learning that now, to look within and see me and value me, so that you could pass that on to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And like Dave said, when you saw that video, it sparked something inside of you.
Try it. Try making a video for David. You try to make a video for Joan, but don't say like her name or his name. Just say you, because then when you look at the video, y'all are reflections of each other. You know what I'm saying? So what you see in her, what she sees in you, and then that might be you'll be like, if you'll rewatch it, you'll be pouring that into yourself subconsciously. So like, try to do it for each other first and see if that helps you then do your own video for yourself, or just go in the mirror in the bathroom and look in the mirror. You gotta talk to yourself.
So if anybody out there sees me in the car and I'm talking about how much I love myself, don't get it twisted. It's a part of my my therapy.
Yes. Yes.
Self-love.
Yes.
Self-love. That's a beautiful beautiful piece of information to have, and powerful tool.
Yes.
Yeah. Crystal, I appreciate you and your time, and the time that you spent talking to us, but the time you spent writing this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hopeful that it will definitely be a tool for a lot of other people in their process and their path of growth and guidance. I hope you continue to find it for yourself, and continue to write many more books of things that you find. Even if you don't write a book, I'm looking out for that album that you're going to drop too, that fire album.
Y'all saw the documentary?
No.
You did not pay attention.
I did not.
Is it the QR code?
Yes.
Oh.
It's only 10 minutes long. Y'all were supposed to watch it before reading.
Here's the thing why I didn't do that. Here's why I didn't want to do that. I didn't know that it was a documentary, but I don't like for people to introduce something so much to me that I have an idea of what I'm ingesting, or about to eat. So I wanted to experience your book without having anybody else's kind of preconceived. But I didn't know it was you on your documentary.
It's just me.
But I thought it said, here's an introduction. I was just like, no, I want to experience it for myself.
Got it.
As I read it. I didn't want it to be told to me, but now that I know that, it's a whole different perspective that I had. I thought it was someone else who wrote a forward for you or something in that way. And I respect that. I definitely will look at it.
Yay.
Question, are you doing like a tour with your book, or are you going to, I would say, I don't know if you're going to churches and speaking on your book, like having back in the day, rap session, schools, like, how are you planning to give people this greatness so that, yeah.
Oh man, that was the goal.
Okay.
But then COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm looking at people doing virtual speaking tours.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's been an influx of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to add to that, but I'm gonna have to figure it out, because I do want to talk, because I feel like it's such a conversation starter. We can go anywhere with it. But it's just a matter of setting up the time, and I got in my own way. Once COVID happened, I was like, I can't have my book signing. I can't go there. I can't go. It was just very heartbreaking in the beginning. But, I do want it to be a read. I'm trying to get it onto syllabi for professors that teach psychology and sociology. I want that to be like a required read. So that's like my main goal right now, to get into some colleges, because I feel like young people.
You in it for the long game. You're not trying to get just the book sales. You want to have that residual effect.
Yeah. Because I just really think it is a healing tool, And so
Mhm.
I want as many people. I know not everybody can afford therapy. Not everybody has the right questions. So if this could just start you off on your journey, cool.
And some of us are afraid too to go out there and open up. I mean, to a stranger, because you don't even know where you feel embarrassed, or you might like you don't want to be looked at a certain way. So this definitely is a good starting point, a good conversation piece. Like it is great. I'm so proud of the work that you've done.
Thank
It is awesome.
you.
Yeah, it is. Because I was just reading it I'm related, and I'm like, yes, aha. These moments that I've gone through and I'm working through myself.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, okay. It's good that you're catching it at this level, and you can talk to high schoolers because, you were the counselor.
Mhm.
And I saw that you were doing some great things there too. And I remember a little conversation you had. I think you were saying was it that you just couldn't really, I want to say the way that you wanted to counsel wasn't adjacent with,
The conference.
yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So
Mhm.
and I was like, I can understand that because there's certain topics that just are,
Taboo. They don't
mhm,
want you to talk, and they're
yes,
coming to me with it. So it's just like, what you want me to do? Give them
ex-
a cliche response? I can't do that.
yeah. So this is definitely
A
a,
resource.
a resource.
A resource for sure.
Yes.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for reading and
Yeah, we'll
reaching
Definitely.
out. I
Of
we'll
was
do our best to
course. Of
we
course.
wanted to put this out there and let people know, what you put into it and all the tools they can get from it. But it's also something like that not a lot of people talk about, and it's not popular. It's not really cool to be vulnerable, and I like that you did that. I appreciate that you took time for that. So we want to help pass that on.
Yes. And so everybody has to
appreciate.
go and get your copy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Come on, power couple, open book, open mind. Let's get it.
Oh,
Oh man.
man.
Well, Crystal, I appreciate, like I said, your time and even being able to have the first-hand account from your book and speaking directly to the source. I wish you much success in your journey, and hopefully we can help you get this out there and create more of a resource for other people as well.
Mhm.
Anyone else who has read this book or has anticipations of reading this book, please feel free to reach out to us or to Crystal at her direct line on her Instagram. Give her some feedback about what you received and what you experienced while you read this. If you agree, definitely let her know that. If you feel like, there's things that you wanted to know more about, she is a very open book herself. And she is now an open book, open mind champion.
Yay, I made it.
Completing this tonight. And if you miss any other of our other discussions and books that we've been reading, check us out on everafterfound.org to see the other series of discussions we had and great books that we've been discussing online, and also the other projects that we're involved in. Hopefully you get your copy of this great book, Wounded Liberation, The Normalization of the Human Herding Race.
Mm.
Growth advisory and motivational content is to be expected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Thank
Lil
you,
Big. Lil Big.
LB.
Oh my God.
You guys are in the New York City, Greater New York, Queens metropolitan area. Please make sure you drive safely and responsibly, and check out Crystal's ride-sharing service,
Yes.
which is called
Elegant Chauffeurs.
Elegant Chauffeurs. Is that an app that you can download and
Not yet. The website is there though, elegantchauffeursllc.com.
Elegant Chauffeurs LLC. Hit her up if you're looking for a ride and you're stuck somewhere. She will get you out there looking fly.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Inspiration.
Thank you so
After
much.
foundation. Now ever after foundation. Giving books to kids in every single nation. You don't have to fret, shorty. You can take some and share it with your friends for their elevation. Education is the key to success. Believe in yourself. Know that you are the best. No need to stress, shorty. You are divine. Open a book. Open your mind. Your mama's